The process of making my short film started with the research and investigation of others. Short films follow certain patterns and conventions that I would have to familiarise myself with before I began the production of my own. Short films tend to contain a standalone narrative lasting anywhere between a minute to 20 minutes. Short films work well for independent producers who don't have the time, resources and money to produce an entire film. Amateur film producers can take advantage of new technology and media to produce short films extremely cheaply and with as few resources as possible. This is a common way of making their way into the film industry. Short films often come in a wide range of genres and styles. They often take influence from multiple genres to make a hybrid genre because they aren't constrained by the way the industry wants to make films for the best possible profit. The producers want to make the films for critical acclaim and not for money. To help me understand the different conventions that make up a short film, I analysed the short films Fight Scene, More Than You Can Chew, Rise and Geist. One of the things I've uncovered in my research is that characters overcoming an ordeal or a problem is a good way to create interest in the narrative of a short film. In the film Rise, the character overcomes the oppression of the humans. In Geist, we see the character going through the ordeal of being haunted by his dead family. I think that when short films put the characters through a problem, it draws in the audience a lot better because they immediately want to see the protagonist overcome a difficult challenge. Another thing that I have found is that most short films have a revelation or twist at the end which takes the audience by surprise. This adds to the anticipation throughout the short film and also creates a more satisfying end to the film. The short film, More Than You Can Chew, has a nice twist at the end where we see a character, who we think is an innocent young boy, come out of a hiding place and attack a paramedic. Fight Scene had a more amusing twist at the end when we see the protagonist never actually have a fight. It was even more necessary for me to have a twist at the end because of the genre of film I was producing. I found that short films that had a more interesting and surprising twist was worth watching a lot more. Short films rely on a variety of interesting shots to convey the narrative of the film, and a score that can convey exactly how the audience should feel at a certain moment. Because of the amount of time the short films have, they don't have a long time to give the audience an emotional attachment to the characters involved, so the film should make good use of shots and sound to pull at the audience's emotions at the right times. I've tried to closely follow certain conventions that make a short film work well, and I feel I have produced a successful film because of this. The idea of putting the characters through an ordeal was something I wanted in my film. Each character in my film is being put through an awful situation, which was just getting worse. It starts with the brother dying, the realisation that the killer has gotten away, and the way that the dad feels that he has to take the law into his own hands. Each of these factors affect the characters in different ways, and should hopefully affect the audience in different ways. The dad is driven crazy, the mum feels helpless, and the son is in shock over the memory of his brother dying in his arms. Because of this, the audience should feel sad for the boy that has died trying to save a random stranger. The audience should also feel sad for the family that are dealing with the death of their son and brother. When the killer isn't brought to justice, the audience should then become more involved in the story because they want to see the killer pay for what he did. Because of all this stress that the characters are put through, my audience will be more interested in the outcome of the story. It was important to have some sort of realisation or twist at the end of my short film, especially because my film was a thriller. The twist at the end is that the father that is pouring the dog food has also been pouring it for the killer that is tied up in the garage. The ending should be satisfying for the audience because even though the dad can't bring his son back to life, he has found justice in kidnapping the criminal. The twist should be anticipated throughout the film, keeping the audience invested in it, and should finish off the story nicely so the audience go away from the film feeling fulfilled. I have tried to use a varied amount of shot types that are as interesting as possible. I use a long follow shot at the beginning to ease the audience in. I use some close-ups at certain characters to clearly display emotion, such as the moment that George gets stabbed, and some POV shots to put the audience in the shoes of the character, like the moment where the mum stands and observes her son's old room. Keeping shots as interesting as possible is important in short films because they need to show skill in cinematography in order to gain critical acclaim. The music I've created has hopefully reflected the events of the short film successfully, because the audience should respond to the mood of the music instantly. An example of a good soundtrack would be like the one from Requiem from a Dream, where the orchestral music is extremely intense